Welcome to Small State Diplomacy. I'm Digby James Wren, your host, and today we're going to be talking about the Donald's duplicity and trickery. Donald the Great, as I mentioned in my podcast on my other channel yesterday on global polarity, and on the Chair, which is my private Substack. I've been doing these each day now, but across different platforms. But they're all in order, and I'll put the links in the description below so that you can follow these backwards. But today, it's duplicity and trickery. Donald the Great is a taco. We all know that. And yes, Tuesday tacos. Yesterday, he went back, right? He went back and he said there's another 5 days. And to be perfectly honest with you, the first thing that entered my mind was, well, yes, 5 more days. What? To ensure the arrival of 3,500 expeditionary forces. And there were reports which seem now to be true, verified, that there's going to be another 2 divisions, I think, or was it 4 divisions? And that's a lot of troops. And the 82nd Airborne, that's paratroopers, and the 101st, which is much more specialized forces, Rangers, that's Delta and all that sort of thing, on their way. So the paratroopers don't have a lot of heavy equipment, so they're basically just going to be dropped in to hold positions, whatever they are, an island, or even inland, say specifically a nuclear reactor or something like that. But the others are infantry, and they have tanks and armored vehicles, handheld missiles, all sorts of things like that. And of course drones, lots of drones, I imagine. So that's not looking good. Now, the duplicity in here is the fact that Trump made the statements saying, okay, we're going to extend this for 5 days because the negotiations have been great. Now, he has not been clear on any of that. Who, what the subject was, what the topic was, where it was held, how long it lasted, who else was in the room. Is there some kind of list of possibilities? Now, he came out and said that Iran is going to give him a great gift, or has given him a great gift. And then I remember seeing the Iranian foreign minister make the statement that in Oman, just before the US aggression started the war, that Iran had agreed to downblend. In other words, take their enriched uranium and then reduce its enrichment so that it's not, it can be only used for civil purposes as opposed to for weapons. Now, that is more than reasonable, and I suppose that is a gift. So is Trump angling this way? Or, as others have said, and I'm thinking specifically about Alexander Mercouris and the Duran, that's a very interesting podcast and a YouTube channel, and they have also mentioned this, and that is, of course, that it's duplicity. He's only trying to get an extra 5 days. And what will happen after that, we're not sure, but it's clearly the Americans are gaining time here to redeploy, reposition, restock, do what they think they need to do, replan. And then at the same time, and this is the wonderful trickery of Trump, I say wonderful, I mean awful trickery of Trump, and that is that he came out and he put Pete Hegseth right in the firing line by saying that all of this was enacted on his advice, which is setting him up if this goes south, which probably will. As I said yesterday, I think there's a 20% chance that the Americans can achieve any actual success in their operation to try and remove the regime or to influence energy policy, for example, and worst case scenario, actually get some kind of effective political control over Iran. I think it's highly doubtful. I'm giving them 20% chance, maybe, and 80% that the Iranians will be able to stop them. And one needs to remember too that the coastline for Hormuz is very rocky, mountainous, and I think that you will find it's very easy to place launchers and artillery sites, all sorts of drone sites, launching sites and everything else. That kind of terrain is going to be very, very difficult to target. But access to the Strait of Hormuz. And anyway, the Iranians have medium-range missiles and other drones that can do that sort of thing, so they don't need to be actually on the coast. And as I said yesterday also, they only need to make sure that the insurance can't be done. That nobody wants to insure these vessels. But I see now that today, in the early reports, that more traffic has been going through the Straits, and these are countries that are not involved in the US and Israeli aggression. And look, I mean, if you're a member of the UN, I think this is the one you should vote for, is allowing this situation where they're defending themselves and they're going to allow ships that are not related in any way to the aggression on Iran, because this is outright aggression. I mean, let's face facts, and this is much worse than Russia in the Ukraine. This is much worse because Russia has valid security problems in the face of an expanding NATO and a coup that changed the government into a non-friendly government, a democratically elected coup in 2014, operated completely controlled by the US. Whereas in Iran, of course, that is not true. This is not the case at all. But on the other hand, the United States needs to dominate energy. So now, in their efforts to make it look like that they are negotiating over this next 5 days, it appears, and I don't have I cannot verify this, but I believe that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are now in Pakistan, waiting perhaps to meet somebody from Iran, and they're mentioning one or two names, which I can't tell you those names at this time, but of people who are connected closely with the Iranian government, but they're suggesting that the Americans, Witkoff and Kushner, can speak to them for a post-aggression settlement of some sort, but I don't think that's going to work either. And now, another point here was that on the announcement of the 5-day delay, there was a huge movement in the oil trading markets just minutes before Trump made his announcement. Over $500 million of trade. And that suggests once again that, and I'll go back to Trump's statement that he made quite a while ago about a month ago, saying, I can make the dollar go up and down, the markets go up and down like a yo-yo. And this is what he's doing. And so people are clearly getting this information in advance, insider trading here. This is a really big-time corruption, $500 million on a one statement. And then, huge movement in the prices. So this is going to come back to haunt Trump and his coterie and family. Now, going forward through these 5 days, yes. So here, as I said before, the duplicity. Yes, we wanted to negotiate. Yes, we're interested to negotiate. Yes, you're going to give me a big gift, which is, nuclear-grade material, so enriched uranium, or down, less enriched uranium, something like that. That's the big gift. But actually what we're rearming, we're restocking, we're reorganizing, repositioning, and getting ready for the next phase. And I think everybody knows this. Iran knows this. They're not going to fall for this. And they're going to do everything they can to prepare during these 5 days to clean up whatever they can, get organized as best they can. Now, I've seen some other reports about, for example, the former American ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, suggested that China has been doing nothing for Iran and they're more interested in their investments in the Arab states and everything else. Well, of course, they're interested in that and they want to protect that, but they are interested in Iran, and so is Russia. Everybody's interested in Iran. Now, as I mentioned in my podcast yesterday, Iran's position in the world is not only civilizational, more than 3,000 years, not only is it a pivot point for all of Eurasia and the soft underbelly into Central Asia and Russia, Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia, and any success from the Americans would, of course, lead almost directly to subversion in those states. And on the other side, Turkmenistan, and we can see that China has been making a lot of statements with Turkmenistan about their joint trade and their strategic partnership. I think this is very important to say that they're going to stay out of this. And that that's going to be obviously a route, and there was a huge convoy of aid sent through that route just last week. And when I say huge, I mean 110 or 112, I think it was, transports, really large trucks, taking medical supplies, food, all sorts of things that people need after they've had more than 3,000 bombing runs on their infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, factories, internet, and just yesterday, immediately after Trump said that he was going to put a hold on this and not bomb critical civilian infrastructure, what did they do? They bombed an oil pipeline or a gas pipeline, and they didn't destroy it, but they definitely put it out of action. And so, I mean, one has to approach Donald Trump every time now with when he says that he's already done something or it's already happened and they want to make a deal. He's saying what he wants. He's not saying what they said. He's just saying what he wants to achieve, and this is his modus operandi. People say, oh, well, he's just lying. They're outright lies and everything else. But really, I see it as media manipulation. He is literally manipulating to give himself a way to get out of any statement. And he's very clever this way. And many people are fooled, especially MAGA voters and many Republicans. But let's think about the November midterms for a moment. Because if things don't pan out and this goes south, and I still think, my opinion is still that this will go south for him. He can declare victory and say that he's got some way out, but he's already set up Pete Hegseth for a fall, and one or two generals won't matter too much, will it? They'll go for a fall. So can they maintain this position? Can they get hold of global oil supply chains and control that and then manipulate energy prices globally for their benefit and only their benefit? Is the world going to allow that to happen? Is the global south going to allow that to happen? Now, there's an interesting point about the global south and specifically the BRICS that I think is very interesting, and I mentioned this quickly yesterday, and that is the fact that the area that Israel basically has dominance over, so with its missiles, air cover, even its small navy and submarines, is basically from the Nile to the Euphrates. That includes the Red Sea, mouth to the Indian Ocean, Eastern Mediterranean, Suez Eastern Mediterranean, through Syria, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, up to Iran. That's a direct line of sight, if you like, flight path, and that's why Syria was so important. And then also further up into Asia, up into near Turkey. So what? Well, the point here is, if this does go south, there'll be a vacuum of power. Israel cannot do this by itself, and the Americans may be put in a situation where they just cannot maintain their force structure. There will be a vacuum of some kind. I don't think it's a massive vacuum, but there will definitely be a vacuum of power. And I think this is what Turkey's worrying about the most. But then think about the BRICS, and let's have a quick go around, and we'll see that it starts with Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, Russia. Well, between all of them, that basically embraces the whole of the Red Sea, Eastern Mediterranean, Straits of Hormuz. So if there is a power vacuum, I think the BRICS has a potential here to set up some kind of security. Now, the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, many of these BRICS members are also in the SCO, so Iran, Pakistan, India, China, the Stans. They are in the SCO, and many of the others are observers, so Turkey, for example, Saudi Arabia. And there's definitely an opportunity here to set up a new framework for security. And if that could be done, that could also be done in Southeast Asia for the South China Sea. It's entirely possible with Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia being members of BRICS, Thailand wanting to be a member of BRICS. So I think there's enormous potential here, and we should think about that more. I'd be very happy to hear from any of my audience as to what and how that could happen. Anyway, what we know now is that between Israel and the US, they are really just playing for time. Everything is over time, and for Netanyahu it's 40 years, 5 days more won't matter too much. The destruction of Gaza, and they're running a war now in Lebanon on the ground. They've destroyed basically the transport infrastructure between the south of Lebanon and the north of Lebanon, which means that Hezbollah is theoretically isolated. But I think there's a lot of fight left in Hezbollah. And does Israel want to commit genocide? Is that what they're really going to try and do? I think this is highly unlikely. This cannot end well. So let's look at what if. So the Americans are going to put in all this equipment, all these troops. Where are they going to place them? Into those bases that can be attacked? No, they're going to have to put them somewhere else. Where? Cyprus? Turkey? Where exactly are they going to put them? Somaliland? Seeing how Israel's recognized Somaliland. Is that what they're going to do? Or is it, we should think more about this. Perhaps these troops are going to be used in the Yemen. That is entirely possible. I think if you had 4 divisions of US troops, you could close down the Houthis. That is possible. I'm not going to say it's happening, but I can see that there's a possibility for that. In terms of Lebanon, the American experience in Lebanon wasn't so great. They pulled out of Lebanon during Reagan's time. I think it was Reagan, when there was a bombing and they lost 270 soldiers. I don't suppose it's going to work out much better if they were to do something like this. But I can see that this is what they're doing. And I think they might also be thinking about the idea of being able to place troops onto ships going through Hormuz, if they can manage to get naval escorts that are powerful enough to stop any Iranian action. On the other hand, the Iranians need to ensure deterrence, which means they have to make sure that they've got everything available to continue to have and exercise control over the Straits of Hormuz. And that, in my mind, actually is the preferred outcome. That the BRICS countries in that area take collective security, but each sets the security for its own area. I know that the Egyptians have been sending troops into Sinai, tanks and so forth, a show of force. I don't know exactly where this is going, but I'm fairly certain now that there's enormous anxiety in Egypt and in Turkey about all of this. They're not liking it at all. And then, this whole kind of US narrative, coming on about how, the Saudis are egging the Americans on. I just can't see that that's true. For the Saudis, the best possible outcome, of course, is to not have a regional war. And they're so exposed, aren't they? I mean, desalination plants, and as Trump said, bing, 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 boom, and it's all over. Well, that would be actually true if desalination plants were wiped out, because they are completely necessary for all of these countries. They do not have water supplies. It'll be more important than energy. That being said, Trump is now obliged to keep the oil price below $100 and lower if he can, and with a view to the midterm elections. Now, this is going to be the biggest problem for him. If this keeps going, if this gets stretched out, so he has 2 options, right? Option 1 is that he gets some kind of an outcome where he can declare a victory, and option 2 is that he doesn't get that, and then he's going to need some other kind of a victory, and or the economy is going to be in all sorts of trouble, is specifically Asian economies that are so heavily dependent on this trade, and that includes Korea and Japan, but they don't want to get involved in a war over this. They'd much rather just negotiate this and then try to have the Americans not go too far. But I think that's proving very, very difficult, because this is not an ad hoc operation. This has been, there is a mission, and there are goals, and there are strategies. And Hegseth is all about strategies, and tactics. I don't think he's a very clever man, and he's very aggressive. And what they're trying to do here is get control of oil supply chains first, then critical minerals, naval superiority, make sure that Israel has superiority from the Nile to the Euphrates over the Red Sea and Suez and Eastern Mediterranean and so forth. That is the plan, and then that will be followed immediately by repositioning all of their forces into the Pacific and the Indo-Pacific. And I can see that would be problematic as well. Although they have just released a report about Taiwan saying that the US, this is a US intelligence report saying that 2027, the Chinese are definitely not going to take any action over Taiwan. Which really just says, okay, it's totally justified that we're now stripping out weapons and platforms and ships and so forth for our new Middle East war. China, of course, must be looking at that and just smiling. Do they really need to do anything? Everybody already knows that Taiwan's part of China. 183 countries in the UN have agreed to that, including the United States. So it's a moot point in that term, but in that way. But in terms of de jure, it's there, but de facto it's not. Yes, so you can see that they've just used this as an excuse to be able to say, okay, we're going to move missiles and deployment and whatever we need out of that area, Indo-Pacific, so that we can use it to get dominance over Iran and its oil, and of course not just Iranian oil, Saudi oil, UAE gas, Qatar, Bahrain, etc. Now, Bahrain is an interesting case. We all know that it's a Sunni emir, closely aligned even with bridges across into Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian troops would definitely protect Bahrain. I think they have previously when there was a uprising a few years back. But look, the population is a majority Shia. I think 80% Shia. So perhaps that's one avenue for the Iranians. We don't know what's going to happen there. But all I know about this at this point in time is that Trump has now got 5 days to do some more trickery, some more deception, and I think this is what is going to happen. It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of the 5 days there were some more assassinations or attacks on individuals in Iran. That would not surprise me in the slightest. Retargeting, reorganizing, perhaps even submarines with launch capacity. I think they're just building up for more action. And Trump really needs a win. But if it does go south, Cuba. I think Cuba is the next one up. Greenland is empty. Cuba is not. And Donald the Great wants to be remembered as being American Empire 2. Theodore Roosevelt and American Empire. It's Donald the Great. So we have to follow this as closely as we can, and hopefully I'll be talking with you all again, either on this platform or on one of my other Substack platforms or YouTube platforms. Thank you very much. Look out for the description below, links to the other podcasts, and we'll be talking to you again tomorrow. Thank you very much.